Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. Our title sponsor for the podcast is Go High Level, also known as GHL. GHL is the first ever all-in-one platform that gives you the tools, support, and resources you need to succeed and crush your marketing goals. Personally, I have used this software since 2020. It's been a game changer for my business and our clients. If you're looking to level up your CRM and marketing game, then this is the platform to use. You can find a link for a free and extended 30-day trial with tons of Builders of Authority and personal branding bonuses in the show notes. So take advantage of the opportunity to adopt GHL's amazing software and grow your business. Today, we have another in-person episode lined up here at Half Coast Studios in St. Louis. He and I got connected last year through a community that we are both a part of. And even though we are both in St. Louis, we had never met before. Since then, we've had multiple conversations chatting about life and business. And I had the opportunity to come to our BOA Live event back in June here in St. Louis. My guest today is Scott Snofke. He is the Senior Direct Mail Marketing Coach at REI Print Mail. Scott, welcome to the show.
Man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's funny how people can be so close to each other and not know they existed.
Not
or
even know at all.
Yeah, we had multiple conversations before. I think I texted you one day. I'm like, wait a minute, that picture's in St. Louis. Are you in St. Louis?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always fun to catch up with people around town and that.
Yeah, it's awesome. What did you think of the event in June?
It was awesome. You know, it's one of those that, you know, even as many events as I travel to, everybody has their own little spin on it and kind of their niche of what they're coaching on. And they bring in the like-minded individuals that help them succeed.
Yep.
So you kind of, it's almost like looking inside of the mind of the person that created the event, of who they're associated with and then where they're going and how you can help them get to that journey and or how they can help you get to your journey. So I think I left and I had 11 pages of notes, which definitely set the record for me because usually I'm not paying that much of attention. So you definitely had me.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. And it's always great getting connected with people here in St. Louis that we're in those communities outside of the area, but we all like think alike. And it's hard to find that. And I was just talking with somebody today that had been working at Enterprise for a long time and they started their own marketing agency. And they were living in London for a little bit and they're coming back here and they're like, hey, I can't find a good place to network, but like I see you all over. Like, why are you going all over? And I'm like, because everybody tries to do the traditional BNIs and all that stuff. And it's like when we are on a different wavelength, it's hard to like find that community. So we find it elsewhere and then we realize there's people in our backyard that do the same thing. So.
Yeah, and it's like, I associate, I don't know why I do this, but I associate a lot of things with the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because everybody's there and you can say and go and you, even though you're in the produce department and as you're looking around the produce department for something certain, there's also things from other departments that are in there.
Yeah.
So then as you find those things, they're there for branding and they're there for on purpose to match or make you think different because the grocery store is psychological. All of that stuff is well thought out of what's on the end caps and things of that nature. So that's the same way with life. As you walk through life, you often see people or get associated with people who will introduce you to somebody else. And even some of my best friends I met through other friends, and then they became my best friend. And it's like it's weird how you find things by not looking for them. Women are the same way.
Yeah. That grocery store comparison is interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But it's very true.
It is. It's. I was speaking with Brandon Brittingham about data a while back in KPIs, that if you're not tracking the KPIs inside of your business, you have no idea, what's going on. And as you're looking through the data, you need to figure out what you want. It's, I think I use the analogy of, somebody that's going in and buying flips is not going to be shopping in the same department as somebody that's going to buy Section 8. For example, here in St. Louis, if you're Section 8, you're going North County, North City, or anything in the city.
Yep.
If you're going into the Westplex and that, you're going to go look for flips out there because of the profit, the profit margins there. So, I often try, keep it simple, stupid. I just narrow it down to what are we all doing on a daily basis and how can I use that information to portray what I do
Yeah.
or how I find things and just break it down to the simplest form to help coach and teach people.
Yeah. Love
So
it.
even even the people that are phenomenally, like, you look up to them, they still need help.
Yeah.
You know, they're experts in their area, but you know, your area is different than their area. So you're an expert there. So you end up helping each other out and grow each other as a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
So talk to us a little bit about your story and then also what you guys do at REI Print Mail.
So, really quickly about me is, you know, I 25 years as a truck driver. You know, was in there trading time for money constantly. Grew up in that union atmosphere that all my mentors made good money, got a house, and traded time for money. And I learned at a really young age that, you know, I can do that, but I was also a hustler. So I was always doing kind of side jobs. Then that led me into buying properties, flipping properties. And in my early 20s, I looked around and was like, everything I set as a goal, I've already accomplished. I wanted to either live on a golf course or live on a lake or live on a lot of land. Well, I had 5 acres at Lake of the Ozarks. I had 40 acres next to me to go hunting in. I could go put my golf clubs in a boat and go to the golf course. Like, I looked around at like 27 going, all right, I made it. This wasn't that hard. And then 08 and through 2010 hit, divorce, depression, you know, all of the common things that will tear down a house of cards. And it wasn't until I walked into Apex for the first time to speak that I looked around and went, wow, this is what I was missing in my 20s. And so that opened my eyes to coaching and mentorship and things like that, to go out and look for those people to teach me. And stepping there, you know, I got out of, I was already in real estate. So our VP is a relative of mine, had been recruiting me for a couple of years just because I talk a lot. And we'll see that really quickly. But, you know, that I make friends in that. So he recruited me to come in, and I already had a love and a passion for real estate. So as I came in, you know, the company had already been growing, and then now we've helped scale it from $12 million company. This year will be a $36 million company. Our target is in the next 3 years to be a $100 million company. And right, we have both feet on the gas and we're going.
You guys do go at 1,000 miles.
Right, yeah. It's you know, we have the Travis Wells approach. You know, we go full bore till we hit something and we find a solution and then step back on the gas. You know?
That's awesome.
But it's one of those that what we do for our clients is nobody else does it in the side of the industry. So, you know, even though there's print houses out there that'll go print, you know, your direct mail and marketing, you know, they won't tell you what to send. You know, they don't track the KPIs and tell you that, hey, this piece performs at this level in this market, because none of the markets are the same. You know, everybody thinks different. East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, you know, everybody talks different. They think different. They grew up different. So you have to focus on what's going to generate the response in that area. So we started with that. And then we realized really quickly that, you know, data is king. So if we had a better list, well, how do we get a better list? Well, we went and bought a data company. So we bought REI Smart Data off of Kent Clothier and the Boardroom Mastermind a couple years ago. Well, that pulled the curtain back to how to analyze the data. And we found all kinds of little pockets in there that most people will go in and look at a data set on a PropStream, Smart Data, List Source, any one of these basic data providers. They just trust the filter. But the filter is sorting numbers. But if the numbers aren't there, then that number's a zero. So if they put in 1 year of ownership, all of a sudden, they're eliminating all the unknowns. And so now we rebuilt our data set so it has little buttons to include the zeros. And so little things like that, all of a sudden, response rates started jumping. And because we were hitting people that other people were missing. So data and then analytics, you know, to say what's getting the best response rate. And then we have an inbound call center that follows up with everybody. So we can help you grow and scale all the way along the way up to a certain point. And then that's actually when you said about go high level, then I start recommending them or Podio or any one of these to get to that next level, because our CRM is for starters. You know, it's once you get to that, want to see that 30, 40,000 foot point of view. I have about half my clients are sitting in a go high level account and growing it and retooling it to meet their needs.
So well, so like I think one of the things you like said is like you the company as a whole like had the tangible things, but you guys went like one step further and grabbed the data, because that's really like what is king with all this stuff. Like you can go and you can do the spray and pray method of like, hey, I'm just gonna go and be everywhere and do all this stuff, but it's like even if it's working, you don't know what's working. So you don't know how to maximize it. And that's what I talk to people all about, whether it's digital marketing, print mail, any type of marketing that's out there, personal branding. all of those things are only as good as the numbers in which you know it to be able to go take it. And again, it's not that you're going to like drastically get different results, but if you could save money and make more money in the process, and when you want to scale it go better and further,
Right.
why would you not do that?
In the, and when I coach, I'm hard on KPIs. If you're not tracking what you're doing, how do you know what works?
Yeah.
And, I go to, if we walk through our own house and the lights are off, you're going to bump into things.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to stub your toe on something, especially if you have kids, because the floor is ever changing, or a dog. I kick the dog bone once a month. And, but then, I look at KPIs like the lights in the industry. It turns the lights on. So now you can maneuver through the house without tripping on things because you know exactly what you're seeing. And the numbers aren't going to lie. So if you can manipulate, you can see the KPIs and then lean into what works, lean away from what doesn't, you're going to make better decisions for your company. And inside of one of my presentations, I teach people really quickly how little movements inside of your number can double your ROI. We run a campaign that's like 18,000 pieces. We did it for Brandon Brittingham and dropped 6,000 over 3 months. But, when you analyze that, if you're say an average or a below average closer, you're closing 1 in 45 deals of the, or 1 in 45 phone calls. And, you're still creating money. And so you're at like a 2.2 closing rate. And say you get a 0.5% response rate, industry standard across the board, state to state. And, you're going to, of that, the cost per mailer averages out to right around $13,000, something like that. And you make $25,000 a deal, all of a sudden in that math, you're going to make 2 deals. Of the deals, you're going to walk away after you paid for your marketing with about $37,000. So, and if you guys want to write this down, you can come back and go, say, if I can increase my response rate by 1/4 of a point, just small number, by sending a better piece, sending better data, and say I get coaching and I start closing at 1 in 40 phone calls. So just a small increase from a 2.2% close rate to a 2.5. By the end of that, when you calculate out those numbers, you're going to go from 90 inbound phone calls on the first campaign to 135 inbound phone calls, which now if we're closing at 40, that's like 3.4, 3.7 deals now in that campaign. So then you times that times 25,000, subtract off because your cost didn't go up any. All you did was create better performance. Now you just doubled your ROI on that same campaign by just moving those needles just a little bit. And that's what KPIs do to people is they're able to turn the lights on in the industry. They're seeing what's working, lean into what's working, lean away from what's not working. And all of a sudden their ROIs are starting to double. So.
Well, I'm gonna have to go back and take notes on all that stuff. But so because obviously your title is senior direct mail marketing coach, and what you're doing right there is you're not just like, hey, come buy my stuff. You're saying, hey, here's the data, here's coaching behind it. Sounds like you obviously help on the sales side. So obviously I know based on knowing you and kind of what you guys do, but talk to us about the difference you take, because it doesn't sound, I would assume most print mail marketing companies are not training you through that whole process.
Right.
So to walk me through that approach.
So we're often imitated, or people are starting to add coaching into their programs. But what separates us inside of the industry is you jump on a call with me or one of our coaches. I think we're up to 13 now. We'll be at 20 by the end of next year. And we're going to sit down and we're going to analyze your market first. We're going to look at what the data is telling us inside of the geographic locations that you've given us down zip code to zip code or county to county. And we're going to look at that data. We're going to analyze that with you. We're going to sit down and say, these are the mail pieces we recommend to send. And in that thought process of which ones to send are going to be who else is in that market. How many other big players do we know that are in there? So we're going to try to manipulate around them and not send you on the same data set as them, not send you with the same mail piece as them, because all it's going to do is lower both response rates. So we're not going to sit there like most companies are going to stick their hand out and go, where's your list? What mail piece do you want to send?
Yeah.
If you go back, and I did this with, I handled Tiffany and Josh High's marketing campaign. In the middle of a webinar, Josh left. And then he came back and he called his other mail house and said, hey, what do you recommend in this area? The check's no longer working. And they're like, well, have you tried postcards? And he's like, well, which one? Well, I mean, you go ahead and pick one. They would not tell him.
Yeah.
And so he came back to the webinar that I was talking on at the time, and I got a text message from him, says, "Hey, stay on afterwards. We need to have a conversation." And then they pivoted away from that mail company back, or to us based off of, we're going to make suggestions. And then we have, since we have a problem with our pieces being taken occasionally or mimicked, there's a lot of pieces that we don't even put on. We have an off-market menu that, it just came up with a little insider trading here, but just a different thought process, different design, because we're constantly evaluating what they're responding to, or how do we create the curiosity coming out of the mailbox.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to the mailbox. Well, why? Coming up here in a couple months, what is it? It's holiday season. We're going to send Christmas cards, or we're going to send something that looks like an invitation style envelope with a realistic looking stamp. We're going to get that open rate.
Yeah.
And then you go into the first of the year, what's up next? It's, tax season. Well, you don't want to send tax checks right away because they're like, wait a minute. But if you send tax documents enclosed on the outside, they're looking for that stuff to build their taxes. And then, you're into April, May, and June. All of a sudden, it's tax season. The end of May, June, you can go back to the invitation envelope because everybody's getting ready for their summer plans, wedding invitations, stuff like that's coming out. So we're constantly evaluating the mailbox, looking at the KPIs of what's performing. And, years ago, it was Google Street View. We got the first cease and desist from Google. We hang that up as a badge of honor because we're constantly, we've gotten calls from the government because I think we had outside of an envelope, it was like Bureau of Fiscal Services or something. And apparently there is an actual, imagine that the government has, we've gotten cease and desist from the government and, hey, Robin's racing, man. We're just trying.
So you've made it, you get it on their radar.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I would imagine obviously like you guys have clients freaking all over. And so like, how do you manage if you have like multiple clients in an area where they're like, hey, but like, I want to know what's going on here. Like, how do you manage the complexity of that?
So it can be difficult, but the beauty of us is before we own a data company, we don't point everybody into one data set. We're going to tell you like, hey, our data is really good here. Our data is not good there. We recommend this data here because ultimately we want you to win. And in wanting you to win, you're going to stay around with us a lot longer. And then that also comes over to transparency. If you jump on a call with me and say you're in New Jersey, then I'm gonna be like, well, what county? And then of that county or city, then I'm gonna go through who I know that's in there, who my clients are, think about what they're currently doing, what mail pieces they're sending, and try to figure out that area that you're not gonna overlap each other with the same mail piece on the same list. And then we have every other week, like later today, we have what we call a what's work and where meeting. So all of us coaches get into one room for about 2 hours, and we bring 3 things that work and 1 thing that don't. But in that time, once we kind of go through the dry erase board, write it all down, the new coaches are learning a lot about different areas. The older coaches, we still learn a lot because somebody might have sent something else that we just randomly found. For example, out of the last what's work and where meeting, KPIs came back and we figured a bigger postcard, better response. Size matters. We're all taught that. And in doing that, the KPIs came back with a certain postcard, got a better response as a small postcard because it looked more real. Because what we did was, here in the Midwest, mailboxes, if you, 80s, 90s, 2000s, if you missed a package before Amazon got big, they threw a little note in your mailbox that, hey, you missed a package. Come to the post office and get it. Yep. So we mimicked that. And then that catches the eye coming out. So most people have seen that. Sorry, we missed you. Handwritten font goes into an offer on the property. We found that the little one looked more realistic because it matched the size that they were used to seeing. So KPIs told us on that particular postcard, smaller is better. So, it's little things like that we're going to come back to you and go, okay, do this, this, and this inside of here. And then, we sit down and we have those conversations in that meeting, and then we just start talking randomly about different environments. Like I have this afternoon, I'm bringing a certain location. I'll leave it undisclosed, but because we broke Little Rock once before. We got a really good response rate there, and everybody flooded to it. And all of a sudden, we're like, "What the hell happened?" Well, we realized all of our coaches were talking about Little Rock.
Yeah.
So we try not to do that anymore. But in this particular location, client was referred to me by one of my mentors said, hey, can you help her out? We're going to do this, this, and this. And I said, all right. And I said, hey, we're probably going to get 40 phone calls on this budget. Is that a good number? Yep, that's perfect. I have 9 other businesses. 9 other businesses is key in this because small town, 9 businesses, well known. We sent a check out with her name on it. Right now, we're sitting at a 18.5% response rate. And she called after 3 weeks and she's like, shut it down. I can't. They were knocking on the office door. She said there was 2 that came by her house. And so we overpopulated her inbound marketing. But at that point, the beauty of us as coaches, it's like, hey, do you need help? And then I was like, hey, here's Travis Wells. He's one of my best closers. Here's somebody else. Talk to these people. They have closing systems that if you give them the leads, you can JV with them. Yeah. And all of a sudden, and I go, and they're trustworthy. So the beauty of that is not only do we coach on how to do it, we coach on who to do it with. Yeah. So we can introduce you to people that are inside of the industry that are trustworthy. I mean, I bring your name up all the time as personal branding and try to, funnel people your way to help you out. But then at the same point, as you see somebody that's getting into direct mail or something like that, you're like, hey, this is a guy that I trust. And trust is king in this industry. If you go untrustworthy, then you don't have a reputation. You have a bad reputation. Yeah. So,
well, I think that's like one of the things where it's like, running a marketing agency previously, like everybody hears, oh my gosh, I had so many phone calls, turn it off. One, that could also be smoke and mirrors where they're just like, hey, I just don't want to do the work. And it's not working. And so they try to tell you that first. But like, you're like, okay, great, good problem to have. But we're not going to turn it off. Let's figure out how we can all make money in the process. Right. Let's figure out and how you can do less work. Right. And so like that strategic approach, I think is also like what sets you apart is like, hey, if the good problems arise, which that's a great problem to have, we're not going to just say, hey, let's stop it. Let's find the solution to the problem. That's where everybody wins.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I love. Hormozy said it the other day, or one of the things he's probably said it 1,000 times, but it's, if you find something that works, beat the hell out of it till it stops working. And like I told her, I'm like, you sure you want to shut it down? And then while I'm on the phone with her, I'm going into her account and pulling it up, and I'm like, oh yes, we need to shut this down. This is absurd that you can't handle this in your current model. Yeah. We can restart it, and then I started to dig deeper into it, and that's when I was like, how well known are you in the area? Once we put her name on a check, I've seen it in a couple other markets where somebody is really well branded. Yeah. And that's the beauty of us is we can have the conversation, we can be the investment firm that's kind of, in the weeds, sits back and works it. But also if you're wanting to brand yourself and you're in a niche market and you want to own that area, then we help, interact with how we put logos on things and how that interacts with the TikToks and the Facebook and the Google and all of those reviews, the things that you do, we start to talk to those people and like, hey, what are you trying to do and manipulate this? So how do we do as seen on TV? Or, if it's Spanish speaking, habla español, and how do we manipulate the piece to, and I'm doing it here with Bobby Coe with the iBuy brand. It's like logo it up as seen on TV. And, to where we're bringing the marketing into where it's all touching itself. And then if they get the mail piece, but they've already seen it here, it just adds continuity to the message. And they find it's an easier close rate. So we just try to sit down and figure out what's your plan? What are you trying to do? How can we integrate our stuff with that? Give you ideas that can grow that even further. So.
Well, I think that's like a perfect story or a testament of building authority, right? It's like, hey, and that's what I tell people all the time is like what you're doing today, when you're building authority, your business is going to like incrementally grow in the process, not overnight, but it's going to grow. Right. But the next thing that you do, that individual had already had 9 businesses. She goes and does another thing. She's already got that brand equity that's there that she could go freaking make up a product and go start selling it. And people are going to buy because they already have the know, like, and trust.
Right. And that's the thing. I just had a conversation with a young lady yesterday that owns a mortgage company, also owns a real estate company. And I said to her, I said, we were building, just kind of talking about custom letters and stuff of that nature. And I said, well, it only takes a sentence with a phone number inside. So if you're mailing here, just put one sentence on there, how to refi, whatever you want that you normally pull them in. So put a mortgage sentence on your mailers that are going out. you're already going out.
Yeah.
So it's, whether you have both logos at the bottom, something like that, you're already marketing here, but tag that marketing, and then vice versa when you're marketing here, or if you want to refinance or if you want to sell, and it's just a different number.
Yeah.
It will still generate traffic. It might not be as much because it's only one sentence, but it'll still create curiosity. It didn't cost you anything to send it out.
Yeah.
So you can cross brand. Excuse me. And then in cross branding, you're going to build that authority up because now they're like, oh, well, they're successful.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to be successful. So they're going to lean into success. And then as they see them more in the market in different areas, it actually builds trust.
Oh yeah.
That, and in building that trust, that creates the inbound lead over the next person. Cause you're always in competition. There's people in there doing what you're doing. It's just at different levels.
Yeah.
Well,
we're doing some SEO and some stuff with the Google Business Profile for an investor that does primarily wholesaling in Greensboro, North Carolina. And so I might take
great market.
Yeah. And so his stuff's blowing up right now. He had somebody walk into his office the other day. He said his
last name's not Larson, is it?
No,
okay.
Bernie. But he goes, hey, first time I've ever had this, and I asked a bunch of my real estate investor friends, and they've never had this happen either. He said some lady typed in, like, need to sell my house fast for cash or whatever, right? All the typical search terms. Right. She saw his Google Business Profile, like, #1, and then saw that they had a bunch of reviews and ratings, showed up to the office and was like, hey, I need your help. And he's like, I've never had that happen before. Somebody coming in and then we signed the deal and he's like, we're going to make like $80K off of it.
Right.
And I share that because so many people right now are like, hey, the market sucks. The people that have been like trying to inch their toe into real estate investing and all the different things, the ones that like made good money in 2020 and anybody can do it then.
Right.
What are your thoughts now on like where everything is at? You have to obviously be more strategic. You got to leverage data. You got to do all that stuff. But like the people that have just gotten by doing it that haven't taken it very seriously, I think are the ones that struggling more so than the people that are in for the long game.
Right. And, and as for like the people getting started, taking action's the biggest thing, and I struggle with it with myself. My mentors yell at me all the time because, I want to get back in and it's one that it's like when I started here, I was like, I want to make sure that I'm the best coach. I want to learn the business before I go to start to do things on the side so I can focus on my clients. And that grew up. And then now it's like, I need to get in there. But the beauty of getting into real estate, it's different than the stock market. It's different than anything else because you can use real estate to grow your wealth exponentially because it's the velocity of money. So you can take money to make more money and utilize if technically if the money's sitting, if you have $20,000 sitting in a savings account right now, you're dumb as a box of rocks because that money is actually losing money sitting there. The inflation is growing and so you're not making a return on that money. But if you take that and you take it over and invest it in a piece of real estate, well, why is real estate king in investing is simply they're never going to make any more of it. They're going to build more houses, but it's not at the rate that people are, at the population growth. Yeah. So I think there's 7 million houses behind right now. There'll be 8 million houses behind by next year. So that's always going to grow. The only time it ever dipped was in 2010 and or 2008 through 2010 with the financial bubble inside of the mortgages. Crashed it. But prior to that, even through the Great Depression, it goes up, it plateaus, it goes up again. And right now they just lowered the interest rate. Yesterday, all your house did was become worth more money. Yeah. So every house you buy now getting out of just owning real estate. If you own real estate, the tax code was written to buy real estate. So now you can go, if you have a rental property, if you own 5 of them, now you're a real estate professional. Well, that changes the tax laws. So now you're able to take the tax laws and use them to cut your tax burden. So for me, for example, if I didn't have real estate, I would owe the government roughly between $140,000 and $160,000 this year, just off of my W-2. But now that I own properties and I'm a real estate professional, now I can take losses, for construction as I buy the next property. And then I can utilize that money that I would have been paying to the government to feed back into my system. And now I'm buying properties on the government's money.
Mhm.
You know, I'm using the loopholes that they made to become more profitable inside of my own portfolio. So now I'm taking money as, you know, as I've saved it from the government, I'm not paying 30% in taxes or 35% in taxes at my tax bracket. I'm taking that money and putting it back into me. So now I just made money off of money that I wasn't going to. And then I take, you know, of that, then when I buy a property and then when I refinance that property, if I borrow money, I don't pay taxes on borrowed money.
Mhm.
So now I'm borrowing it, it's 6 to 8%.
Yeah.
And I'm taking that money that I borrowed to go buy more property. Well, the property typically grows anywhere from 6, 8, 10, 12, 30% in a year, depending on the market. And so I'm taking borrowed money and I'm making more money on it. So I'm using my money and using the tax code to make more money and the velocity of money. And that's why real estate, every millionaire out there has its finger in real estate.
Mhm.
You know, the majority of millionaires, like I think it's like 87% of all millionaires became a millionaire because of real estate. So, you know, there's no time like the present to get into it. The only better time was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's
as with anything.
right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I highly recommend to get into it. There's companies out there that have done for you systems.
Mhm.
You know, there's a company here in St. Louis with Jimmy Vreeland, the iBuy brand, that if you have, you know, if you make over $300,000 a year, you have the credit. You can go in and they'll find you the property. They'll they'll negotiate the property. You buy it through their mortgage company, so they'll save you 1.5 points, and then they'll repair it. They'll rent it, and then you make the gains off the property, and you use the taxes, and they're doing everything for you for a minor fee as it goes, but it's actually cheaper than if you went and bought each one. And those companies are popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
And then there's other companies out there that are creating funds, you know, syndicates.
Yep.
And you can take that $20,000 that's sitting in the bank and go put it into, you know, not to name drop here, but Brandon Brittingham's a phenomenal one. He has mailbox money.
Mhm.
So you take the 20 grand, put it into him. He's making 9 to 11%. Every quarter he's sending you a check. And he actually just started wiring the money, but that's why he called it mailbox money, and he doesn't miss payments. So there's funds out there that you can go and buy into as a real, you know, instead of going to the stock market and buy into real estate with just the money that you have sitting there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
fascinating.
I know. I got in full blown into real estate 2.5 years ago, and I looked around and went, whoa.
Yeah.
There's
moving parts and pieces.
Right.
There.
Yeah. It's just like sitting in the universe and watching it orbit, and you're just like, you know, and then you start to meet people like you and, you know, the groups that we're involved in, and you start to network, and the growth potential that's there is phenomenal.
Just amazing.
Yeah. It's like, I get myself into trouble of analysis by paralysis.
Yeah.
Because there's so many options. and then I go and speak to, you know, my coach and my mentors. And as I speak to them, they're just like, get off the bench.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can't, you're overanalyzing everything.
Yeah.
Because I'm a numbers guy. I love KPIs. And it's like, okay, I'll do it. You know, I'll do this, and this. And then I'm like, well, what about this number? You know, and so it's a struggle at times to get in there. But, you know, I tell people all the time, if you find the good mentors, the good coaches, they cost money.
Yeah.
They're high end, but there's a reason that people pay that, because typically, I mean, Justin Colby, I had him on my podcast. I think he spends, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think he spends over $100,000 a year just in coaching and mentorship. And on the podcast earlier this year, you know, we're talking REI Smart Talk. You can find it on not YouTube. YouTube, REI Print Mail. And but as we were talking, he's like, yeah, I spent over, you know, $100,000, but it made me 1.4. He goes, I can, you know, of the changes I made, I seen a $1.4 million increase. And, you know, it's one of those that the coaches add up quick, but the thought processes and what they teach you is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, this has been an incredible episode, Scott. I really appreciate you coming in. I learned a lot. I know the audience is. We'll have to catch up and chat further after this. But where can people stay connected with you online and also learn a little bit more about REI Print Mail?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me, I mean, we're free. So free coaching. If you're getting into real estate, want to talk about real estate, or, want to see what your market is, you can jump on my calendar at scott.reiprintmail.com. Or, you can find me on Facebook, Scott Snofke. There's, I think there's only like 13 Snofkes in all of, and I'm in St. Louis. So right here with Adam, you can catch me on there. And then, if you just go to REI Print Mail, grab any one of us coaches, all of us will be happy to help you. So I appreciate you having me on today, man. This was fun. We got to do this more.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. Thank you so much. And thanks again to the audience for listening to today's episode, as well as our title sponsor, Go High Level. You heard Scott recommends it and has a lot of his clients on it as well. Without them, we aren't able to produce the quality of content or have amazing guests on like we did today with Scott. Check out a free and extended 30-day trial in the show notes. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review as well. And remember, authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.